The knock shattered Sophia's world at exactly 12:47 p.m. She opened the door of her small art classroom, paint still wet on her fingers, to find a man in a suit that cost more than she made in 6 months. His briefcase gleamed like a weapon. "Miss Martinez, I'm here regarding your family's account with Blackwood Industries." The name alone made her stomach drop. Everyone knew the Blackwoods. Old money, new power, a reputation for collecting what they were owed, no matter the cost. There must be some mistake. "No mistake, miss." He extended an envelope bearing an ornate family crest. "This matter requires immediate attention." Her mother appeared in the doorway, and Sophia watched the color drain from Elena's weathered face. Her hands shook as she stared at that envelope like it was a death sentence. "Mama, what's wrong?" Elena's voice cracked. "Your father. Before he died, he made arrangements. I prayed they would forget." Inside their tiny kitchen, Sophia read the contract 3 times. The legal language was dense, but the meaning was devastatingly clear. 15 years ago, when she was just 9 years old, her father had borrowed $3 million from Blackwood Industries to save his failing business. The debt had never been repaid. With accumulated interest, it had grown to $8 million. Then she saw the collateral clause and her world tilted sideways. In his desperation, her father had offered something that wasn't his to give. His daughter's future, her life, her body, bound in contract to the Blackwood heir until the debt was satisfied. "This can't be legal," Sophia whispered. But even as she spoke, she knew it was. Her father's signature was there, bold and desperate, next to witness seals that made the contract ironclad. "The Blackwoods always collect their debts," Elena said through her tears. "Damien Blackwood doesn't forgive, and he doesn't forget." 3 days later, a black sedan pulled up to their house. Sophia watched from her window as a man stepped out, and she understood immediately why people feared the Blackwood name. Damien Blackwood moved like he owned the world around him, tall and imposing, with dark hair and eyes the color of storm clouds. His charcoal suit probably cost more than everything in her house combined. He radiated a power that made the air itself seem to bend. When she opened the door, his voice was smooth and cold as winter steel. "Miss Martinez, I trust you've reviewed the documentation." Sophia stood on her porch, chin raised despite the fear racing through her veins. "I've read it. That doesn't mean I agree to it." A slight smile played at the corner of his mouth, but it held no warmth. "Agreement isn't required. Your father's signature is binding. My father is dead. His debts should be too." An older man stepped forward. Vincent Torres, Damien's lawyer. He had kind eyes that seemed apologetic for what he was being forced to orchestrate. "Miss Martinez," Vincent said gently, "there are certain protections in place. This arrangement doesn't require intimacy. It's merely a legal marriage, a business transaction." Sophia's laugh was bitter. "How considerate." Damien's jaw tightened. "You have 1 hour to pack your belongings. We'll handle the legal formalities this afternoon." As the reality crashed over her, Sophia realized her simple life was about to end. She was about to become the property of a man who looked at her like she was nothing more than a business expense. But as she stared into those storm-gray eyes, she caught something else lurking beneath the cold facade. A flicker of pain that was gone so quickly she might have imagined it. 1 hour. 1 hour to say goodbye to the life she'd built, the dreams she'd painted, and the freedom she'd taken for granted. Why? The word escaped before she could stop it. Why now? Why not years ago? Damien turned back, his expression unreadable. "Because 3 days ago I turned 30, and according to the terms my father set before his death, I have 6 months to fulfill this contract or lose everything he built." His eyes locked onto hers, and for the first time, she saw something human beneath the ice. "You're not the only one trapped in this, Miss Martinez. The difference is, I didn't have a choice either." The courthouse smelled of dust and bureaucracy, its fluorescent lights casting everything in a harsh, unforgiving glow. Sophia wore a simple blue dress that her mother had pressed with shaking hands, the closest thing to wedding attire she could manage on 3 hours' notice. Damien stood beside her in perfect silence as the officiant droned through vows that meant nothing. When the man said, "You may kiss the bride," Damien simply turned away. "That won't be necessary." The ride to the Blackwood estate was suffocating. Sophia stared out the window at a world that suddenly felt foreign, while Damien worked on his laptop as if she didn't exist. The mansion rose before them like something from a Gothic novel. Stone and glass and old money, surrounded by manicured gardens that probably required a small army to maintain. "Your room is in the east wing," Damien said as they entered the marble foyer. "Mine is in the west. I prefer we maintain distance. Believe me, that won't be a problem." His eyes flashed with something dark. "Mrs. Chen will show you around. Dinner is at 7. Your presence is required for appearances." He walked away without another word, leaving Sophia standing in a house that felt more like a museum than a home. Mrs. Chen, the housekeeper, was a small woman with silver hair and gentle hands. She led Sophia through endless corridors lined with portraits of stern-faced Blackwoods who all seemed to share Damien's cold eyes. "Don't mind him, dear," Mrs. Chen said softly. "He's not as heartless as he pretends to be. Could have fooled me. His father was cruel. Made him that way, but there's still good in him, buried deep." The room they'd prepared for her was larger than her entire childhood home. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked gardens bathed in golden afternoon light, a king-sized bed with silk sheets, an ensuite bathroom with marble everything. It was beautiful and empty, and absolutely suffocating. Sophia sank onto the bed, and finally let herself cry. Dinner was a tense affair in a dining room that could seat 30, but held only 2. They sat at opposite ends of an absurdly long table, separated by crystal and china and a chasm of resentment. Damien barely looked at her. "There are rules you need to understand." "Of course there are. In public, you will act as my wife. Attend events, smile for photographs, play the part. And in private? In private, we're strangers. Stay out of my way, and I'll stay out of yours." Sophia set down her fork. "Why did your father do this? Why arrange this contract?" For the first time, something cracked in Damien's composure. His knuckles went white around his wine glass. "Because he believed love made men weak. He wanted to ensure I married for business, not emotion. He wanted to control me even from beyond the grave. Sounds like a real prize of a man. He was a monster." The words came out raw and unexpected. "And I'm his son." The vulnerability in that admission hung between them like smoke. Sophia found herself seeing him differently, not as a villain, but as another prisoner in a cage built by someone else's cruelty. "We're not our parents," she said quietly. Damien's eyes met hers, and for a moment the ice melted. "Aren't we?" The moment shattered when his phone rang. He answered with a curt greeting, then his face went cold again. "I have to go. Business." He stood, straightening his suit. "Don't wait up." Sophia watched him leave, and something in her chest tightened. She'd seen behind the mask for just a second, and now she couldn't unsee it. That night, unable to sleep in her gilded cage, she wandered the halls. She found herself in what must have been Damien's study, drawn by a sliver of light under the door. She shouldn't have entered. But curiosity won. The room was lined with books and smelled of leather and whiskey. On the desk sat a photograph she wasn't supposed to see, a young Damien, maybe 16, with a woman who had kind eyes and his same dark hair. They were both smiling, genuine and bright. That was my mother. Sophia spun around. Damien stood in the doorway, jacket off, tie loosened, looking more human than she'd ever seen him. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. She died when I was 17. Car accident. My father was driving drunk." He walked past her to pick up the photograph, his fingers gentle on the frame. He walked away without a scratch. She didn't. "Damien, I'm so sorry." After that, he became worse, meaner. He blamed me for not being in the car, said I should have died instead of her. He set the photo down carefully. "I spent the last 13 years becoming exactly what he wanted, cold, ruthless, efficient." Sophia took a step closer. "But you're not him, aren't I?" He turned to face her, and the pain in his eyes was staggering. "I bought you, Sophia, like property, just like he would have done. You didn't have a choice. There's always a choice. I chose my empire over your freedom." They stood there in the dim light, 2 broken people trapped in a contract neither of them wanted. Sophia reached out before she could stop herself and touched his hand. The contact was electric. Damien stared at their joined hands like he'd forgotten what human touch felt like. Then he pulled away as if burned. "You should go." This was a mistake. Damien, go, Sophia, please. She left, but the warmth of his hand lingered on hers, and as she walked back to her lonely room, she realized something terrifying. She was starting to care about the man who owned her. 3 weeks into their arrangement, Sophia found her rhythm in the gilded cage. She spent her mornings painting in a sunroom that Mrs. Chen had quietly converted into a studio. The housekeeper had found her old art supplies and set them up without being asked, along with fresh canvases and expensive paints Sophia would never have bought for herself. Damien kept his distance. They barely spoke beyond the necessary pleasantries when his assistant, Marcus, reminded him of upcoming social events where Sophia's presence was required. Their first public appearance was a charity gala. Sophia wore a dress that cost more than her mother's monthly rent, deep emerald silk that made her feel like she was playing dress-up in someone else's life. When Damien saw her descending the stairs, something flickered across his face before the mask slammed back down. "You look acceptable," he said. "Your charm is overwhelming." In the car, Damien briefed her with clinical efficiency. "Stay close, smile, don't answer questions about our relationship. If anyone asks how we met, say it was through family business. Lying comes naturally to you, doesn't it?" His jaw tightened. "In my world, the truth is a luxury most can't afford." The gala was a parade of fake smiles and sharper judgments. Sophia felt every eye on her, assessing, calculating her worth. Damien kept his hand on the small of her back, a touch that was meant to be possessive, but felt strangely protective. "There's someone you need to meet," Damien said, steering her toward a woman in red. "Victoria Ashford, my father's business partner's daughter. We were engaged once." Sophia's stomach dropped. "Were?" "Before the contract." His voice was flat. "Before you." Victoria Ashford was stunning. Tall, poised, with ice-blonde hair and a smile that could cut glass. When she saw Damien, her eyes lit up before narrowing on Sophia. "Damien, darling." Victoria kissed both his cheeks, letting her hands linger. "And this must be the little art teacher everyone's talking about." "Victoria." Damien's voice held warning. "This is my wife, Sophia. How quaint. A contract marriage, I heard. Your father always did have a flair for the dramatic." Victoria's smile was poison wrapped in honey. "Tell me, Sophia, how does it feel to be bought?" Sophia's hand tightened around her champagne glass. "Better than being discarded, I imagine." Victoria's smile froze. Damien's hand pressed firmer against Sophia's back, and she could feel the tension radiating from him. "If you'll excuse us," Damien said coldly, leading Sophia away. Once they were alone in a quiet corridor, Damien released her. "You didn't have to engage with her. She called me little art teacher, like I'm some kind of pet you picked up. She's bitter." "Ignore her. Were you in love with her?" The question came out before Sophia could stop it. Damien turned to face her, and something in his expression softened. "No, it was an arrangement like ours. The difference is, she wanted it. She wanted the Blackwood name and everything that came with it." "And what did you want?" "I wanted to be free." His voice was raw. "But men like me don't get that luxury." Before Sophia could respond, Victoria appeared at the end of the corridor with a man Sophia didn't recognize. They were speaking in low, urgent tones, but Victoria's eyes were fixed on Damien with an intensity that made Sophia's skin crawl. That night, back at the mansion, Sophia couldn't sleep. She found herself wandering again, drawn to the study where she'd first seen past Damien's armor. She was surprised to find him there, sitting in the dark with only moonlight streaming through the windows. "Can't sleep either?" she asked softly. "I don't sleep much." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit, if you want." Sophia sat, and they shared a comfortable silence that felt more intimate than words. Finally, Damien spoke. "My father used to lock me in this study when I disappointed him. Sometimes for hours, sometimes overnight." His voice was distant. "He said isolation would teach me strength. That's not strength. That's cruelty. I know that now. But I was a child. I believed him." Sophia leaned forward. "Is that why you keep everyone at arm's length? Because he taught you that closeness is weakness?" Damien's eyes met hers, and the vulnerability there stole her breath. "Yes, you're not weak, Damien. You're surviving. So are you." He stood and walked to the window. I've been thinking about the contract, about what it's done to you. I want you to know that I'm working on finding a way out. A loophole. Something. Sophia stood, moving to stand beside him. Why? You'd lose everything. Maybe some things are worth losing. The air between them crackled with tension. Sophia felt her heart racing as she looked up at him. This close, she could see the faint scar above his eyebrow, the shadows under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights. Damien, she whispered. He turned to her, and something in his expression cracked wide open. Sophia, His phone shattered the moment. He answered with a sharp curse, his face going from vulnerable to furious in seconds. What do you mean the accounts are frozen? By whose authority? He listened, his knuckles white. I'll handle it. Don't do anything until I get there. He hung up and turned to Sophia, his expression grim. I have to go. There's a problem at the company. At 2 a.m. It's not just a problem. Someone's trying to stage a hostile takeover. They've frozen my access to the family accounts. His eyes were hard. There's only one person with enough influence to do that. Who? Victoria's father. And she's working with him. His voice was cold fury. She warned me at the gala. I just didn't see it. What are you going to do? Damien looked at her, and in his eyes she saw the ruthless businessman everyone feared. I'm going to remind them why you don't cross a Blackwood. He left, and Sophia stood alone in the study, her heart pounding. She'd seen behind the ice tonight. She'd seen the man beneath the armor, and God help her, she was falling for him. But as she turned to leave, she saw something on his desk she hadn't noticed before. A file with her name on it. Inside were documents, background checks, financial records, her entire life laid bare, and at the bottom, a note in Damien's handwriting. Find a way to break the contract. She deserves better than this. Sophia's hands trembled as she read those words. He'd been trying to free her, but someone had found out. Someone was using it against him. She heard footsteps and quickly closed the file. Vincent Torres appeared in the doorway, his kind eyes troubled. Sophia, I need to talk to you. It's about the takeover, and it's about Damien. He stepped closer, his voice urgent. There's something you need to know. Something that changes everything. Vincent closed the study door behind him, his face grave in the moonlight. What is it? Sophia's voice was barely a whisper. The hostile takeover isn't random. Victoria and her father have been planning this for months, but they needed leverage, something that would destabilize Damien enough to make him vulnerable. What kind of leverage? Vincent pulled out a folder, his hands shaking slightly. Your contract. They know Damien's been trying to break it. They know he's been meeting with lawyers, looking for loopholes, and they're going to use it to destroy him. Sophia felt the blood drain from her face. How? The contract stipulates that if Damien fails to maintain the marriage for 6 months, or if he attempts to void it prematurely, he loses controlling interest in Blackwood Industries. Everything transfers to the secondary shareholders. Vincent's eyes were filled with regret. Victoria's father is the largest secondary shareholder. So if Damien frees me, he loses everything. Yes. And they've been feeding information to the board, making Damien look unstable, claiming he's letting emotion cloud his judgment, that he's weak. Sophia sank into the chair. They're using me as a weapon against him. There's more. Vincent hesitated. Your father's debt. It was never real. The words hit her like a physical blow. What? Damien's father fabricated most of it. Your father borrowed $300,000, not $3 million. The rest was manufactured through false interest calculations and fraudulent fees. It was a trap from the beginning. Sophia felt sick. Why? Why would he do that? Because Damien's father wanted to ensure his son married for business, not love. He chose you specifically because you came from nothing. He thought you'd be easy to control, that you'd never fight back. Vincent's voice was gentle. He was wrong about you. Does Damien know? I just found the evidence tonight. I was going through old files after hearing about the takeover. Damien doesn't know yet. Sophia stood, her mind racing. I need to see him. I need to tell him. Wait. Vincent caught her arm. There's one more thing. If the truth about the fraudulent debt comes out, it could invalidate the entire contract. You'd be free. But it would also give Victoria's father grounds to sue for fraud. The legal battle would destroy Blackwood Industries from the inside. Everything Damien's been trying to protect would be gone. So my freedom costs him everything. I'm afraid so. Sophia paced the study, her heart pounding. Where is he now? Emergency board meeting. Victoria's father called it. They're voting on whether to remove Damien as CEO. Vincent checked his watch. He has an hour to convince them otherwise. Take me to him. The boardroom was on the 40th floor of Blackwood Tower, all glass and steel and cold ambition. Sophia burst through the doors with Vincent behind her, drawing shocked stares from the dozen men and women seated around the conference table. Damien stood at the head, his tie loosened and exhaustion carved into his face. When he saw her, confusion and concern flashed across his features. Sophia? What are you doing here? Victoria sat beside her father, a triumphant smile playing on her lips. How dramatic. The little wife comes to save the day. Shut up, Victoria. Sophia's voice was steel. She looked at Damien, holding his gaze. I know about the debt. I know it was fake. The room erupted. Damien's face went white. Vincent told me everything. Your father fabricated most of it. The contract is based on fraud. Mr. Ashford, Victoria's father, stood with a smile like a shark. And now she's given us exactly what we need. Proof of fraud within Blackwood Industries. I call for an immediate vote to remove Damien Blackwood as CEO. No. Sophia turned to face the board. You don't understand. I'm not here to expose the fraud. I'm here to validate the contract. Damien's voice was raw. Sophia, what are you doing? She looked at him, memorizing every line of his face. What I should have done from the beginning. Fighting for something worth saving. She turned back to the board, her voice steady despite her racing heart. The debt is real because I'm making it real. I'm accepting the terms of the contract voluntarily, not because I'm forced to, but because I choose to, which means there's no fraud. There's no leverage. There's just a marriage, legal and binding. You can't do this, Damien said, moving toward her. Sophia, I've been trying to free you. I know. I saw the note on your desk. She smiled sadly. But you're not the only one who gets to make sacrifices. Victoria's composure cracked. This is absurd. She's lying to protect him. No. Sophia's voice rang clear. I'm choosing him. There's a difference. Mr. Ashford's face was red with fury. This changes nothing. The board still questions Damien's ability to lead. Then question mine too. Sophia stepped closer to Damien, her hand finding his. Because as of tonight, I'm not just his wife in name. I'm his partner. And if you remove him, you lose us both. One of the board members, an older woman with sharp eyes, spoke up. The girl has spine, more than some of you. She looked at Damien. Your father was a bastard, Damien. We all knew it. But you're not him. You've tripled our profits in 5 years, while maintaining ethical standards your father never cared about. I vote to keep you as CEO. One by one, other board members voiced their support. Victoria watched her plan crumble, her face twisted with rage. You'll regret this, she hissed at Sophia. Both of you. I doubt it, Sophia replied calmly. When the vote concluded, Damien retained his position. Mr. Ashford stormed out with Victoria on his heels, threats and legal promises trailing behind them. The moment the boardroom emptied, Damien turned to Sophia. His eyes were blazing with emotion she'd never seen before. Why did you do that? I was trying to free you. I know, but I realized something tonight. She stepped closer. Freedom isn't about being alone. It's about choosing where you belong. Sophia, you don't understand what you've done. You've bound yourself to this. To me, voluntarily. I know exactly what I've done. Her voice trembled. I've chosen to fight for someone who was ready to lose everything to set me free. I've chosen to stay with the man who sees me, not as property, but as an equal. Damien's hand came up to cup her face, his touch gentle despite the intensity in his eyes. You're not my prisoner anymore. No, I'm your partner. If you'll have me, if I'll have you. His laugh was broken and beautiful. Sophia, I've been falling for you since the moment you stood on that porch and refused to be afraid of me. I've been falling for you in every conversation, every stolen glance, every second you've spent in this house making it feel less like a tomb and more like a home. Then kiss me, Sophia whispered. Not because a contract says you should, because you want to. Damien's lips met hers with a hunger that stole her breath. The kiss was fire and desperation and hope, All the emotions they'd been holding back since that first day crashing together in a wave that left them both shaking. When they finally pulled apart, Damien rested his forehead against hers. "I love you. God help me, I love you. I love you too." They stood there in the empty boardroom, the city lights glittering 40 floors below, two people who'd found each other in the wreckage of their father's cruelty and chosen to build something new. But as they left the building hand in hand, neither of them saw Victoria watching from across the street, her phone pressed to her ear and murder in her eyes. "It's done," she said to whoever was listening. "Phase 2 begins now, and this time, they won't see it coming." 2 weeks after the board meeting, Sophia woke to find Damien's side of the bed cold. They'd been sharing a room since that night, learning each other in ways that went beyond physical intimacy, learning to trust, learning to heal. She found him in the study, staring at his laptop with an expression that sent ice through her veins. "What's wrong?" He looked up, and the devastation in his eyes made her stomach drop. "They found your mother." "What?" "Who found her?" "Victoria. She's been digging, trying to find leverage." Damien's voice was hollow. "Sophia, your mother has stage 4 cancer. She's been hiding it from you for months." The world tilted. "No, that's not possible. I've already called the hospital. It's real." He stood, moving to her. "I'm so sorry." Sophia felt her legs give out. Damien caught her, holding her as the news crashed over her in waves. Her mother, dying. And she'd been so wrapped up in her own situation she hadn't noticed. "I need to see her. I'll take you. Right now." The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and resignation. Elena Martinez looked smaller than Sophia remembered, her weathered face now gaunt and pale against the white pillows. "Mama!" Sophia rushed to her bedside, taking her mother's thin hand. "Why didn't you tell me?" Elena's smile was weak but genuine. "Because you had enough to carry, Mika. You didn't need my burden, too." "You're not a burden. You're my mother. I'm dying, Sophia. The doctors say I have weeks, maybe a month." Elena's eyes moved to where Damien stood in the doorway. "But I can die in peace knowing you're taken care of." "Mama, the contract, it wasn't what you thought." "The debt was fake." Elena's eyes widened. "What?" Sophia explained everything. "The fraud. The choice she'd made. The love she'd found in the wreckage." When she finished, Elena was crying. "You chose him anyway? Even knowing you could be free?" "I chose us." "That's different." Elena looked at Damien. "Come here, young man." Damien approached, and Elena took his hand with surprising strength. "You love my daughter?" "More than anything." "Then you protect her. When I'm gone, you make sure she knows she's not alone." Elena's voice was fierce despite her weakness. "And you let her protect you too. That's what love is. Equal. Mutual. Not one person saving the other, but both people choosing to fight together." "I promise," Damien said, his voice rough with emotion. That night, they moved Elena into the mansion. Damien had converted a ground floor room into a private suite, bringing in hospice nurses and making sure Elena had everything she needed. Sophia spent every possible moment with her mother. They talked about everything and nothing, about Sophia's father, about old memories, about the future Elena wouldn't see. One afternoon, while Sophia was reading to her mother, Vincent appeared in the doorway looking shaken. "Sophia, Damien needs you. Now." She found him in the study, his face ashen as he stared at documents spread across his desk. "Victoria's final play," he said without looking up. "She can't touch me legally anymore." "So she's going after you. What do you mean?" "She's filed a lawsuit claiming you manipulated me, that you used emotional coercion to secure your position. She's demanding the contract be voided and that you be charged with fraud." He finally met her eyes. "If she wins, you could face criminal charges. Years in prison." Sophia's blood ran cold. "Can she win? With the right lawyer and the right jury? Maybe. She's twisting everything. Our relationship. Your choice to validate the contract. She's making it look like a calculated scheme. So what do we do?" Damien stood, his jaw set. "We fight. I've already called our lawyers. We'll bury her in countersuits. We'll expose every illegal thing the Ashfords have done. No," Sophia interrupted. "We end this." "What?" She moved to the desk, her mind racing. "She wants the contract void?" Fine, we void it. We divorce. I walk away with nothing. Absolutely not. Damien's voice was fierce. I won't let her win. I won't lose you. You won't. Sophia took his face in her hands. Listen to me. If we void the contract now, on our terms, she has no case. There's no fraud if we both walk away voluntarily. No manipulation if we choose to end it. And then what? We just stop being married? We stop being bound by your father's contract. We stop letting their hate dictate our lives. She smiled through her tears. And then, when this is over, when the dust settles and Victoria has nothing left to fight with, you ask me to marry you again. For real this time, because we choose each other, not because some piece of paper says we have to. Damien pulled her close, his arms tight around her. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. The divorce was finalized within a week. Sophia signed papers that freed them both from the contract that had started everything. Victoria tried to push her lawsuit anyway, but without the contract, she had no grounds. The case was dismissed. Sophia moved back into her mother's small house for the final days. Damien visited every evening, sitting with them both, reading to Elena when Sophia's voice gave out from exhaustion. Elena passed 3 weeks later, on a Tuesday morning with sunlight streaming through the windows. Sophia held her hand while Damien held Sophia, and Elena's last words were, "Be happy, mija. Choose happiness every day." The funeral was small and beautiful. Damien stood beside Sophia throughout, his presence a steady anchor in the storm of grief. That evening, standing in the garden where her mother had once grown roses, Sophia felt Damien's hand find hers. "I made your mother a promise," he said softly, "that I'd make sure you knew you weren't alone. I know I'm not. You've proven that every day. Good, because I intend to keep proving it." He turned to face her, and in the fading light, he looked less like the cold businessman she'd first met, and more like the man she'd fallen in love with, Sophia Martinez. "We've done everything backward. Contract before courtship, marriage before love, divorce before proposal." She laughed through her tears. "We've never been conventional." "No. And I don't want to start now." He pulled a small box from his pocket and opened it to reveal a simple ring with a single diamond. "This isn't a business transaction. This isn't about debt or obligation or anything except this. I love you. I choose you. Every day, every moment, for the rest of my life. Will you marry me? For real this time, as equals, as partners." Sophia looked at the man who'd started as her captor and become her salvation, who'd been willing to lose everything to set her free, who'd stood beside her through her darkest days, and somehow made her believe in light again. Yes. 1,000 times. Yes. He slipped the ring on her finger, and when he kissed her, it tasted like freedom and forever. 6 months later, they married again. Small ceremony, just Vincent and Mrs. Chen and a handful of people they loved. No contracts, no obligations. Just vows spoken freely and meant with every fiber of their beings. They turned the Blackwood mansion into something new. Less tomb, more home. Sophia opened the East Wing to art students who couldn't afford supplies. Damien restructured the company, dismantling his father's cruelest policies and building something ethical. Victoria and her father faced their own reckoning. Federal investigations into their business practices revealed decades of fraud. The empire they'd tried to steal crumbled under scrutiny. Some nights, Sophia still painted in the sunroom, and Damien would watch from the doorway like he couldn't quite believe she was real. Some nights, he'd still wake from nightmares of his father's cruelty, and she'd hold him until the ghosts faded. They were both still healing. Both still learning how to be free, but they were learning together. One evening, standing in the study where they'd first begun to truly see each other, Damien pulled Sophia close. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "That day you chose to stay, to validate the contract. You could have been free so much sooner." Sophia looked at the man she loved, at the life they'd built from the ashes of their father's sins, and smiled. "I was never trapped, Damien. From the moment I chose you, I was free. We both were." He kissed her softly, a promise and a prayer. Outside, the sun was setting over gardens that bloomed with life instead of obligation, casting everything in shades of gold instead of gray. They'd started in darkness, bound by cruelty and circumstance. But they'd found light together, not because they were saved, but because they'd chosen to save each other. And in the end, that choice made all the difference. The end.